All right, guys, it's time for the Next Level Guy Show, a men's interview, interest, and improvement-focused podcast featuring interviews with the greats from all industries to help you better your life. Each week, a new episode features an interview with one of the greats, covering all aspects of their story, from life hacks to tips and protocols that have allowed them to live life on the next level. We then highlight concrete action steps that you can use to improve your life. And now, your host, Ian Dawson Mackay.
Hello and welcome to an episode of Top Tier Talent, a new series where I focus on stars who are top tier prospects in their sport of industry and focus on finding and highlighting the key skills, habits and mindsets that make them so successful. Today's guest is David Jp Phillips, who's an international public speaker, author and coach. Throughout his career, he's delivered over 1,000 presentations and coached hundreds of people in the skills of communication. He loves analysing why we humans behave as we do and what our communication means for us in life. He's ranked 8th in Communication Global Gurus. He's had over 8 million views on TED Talks, and you should follow him to get motivated, hack your sadness, and achieve happiness. And in this interview, we discuss the importance of communication, the ways you can be great but also be an ineffective communicator, some key skills to utilise to improve your communication methods, how to hack your depression and anxiety, and so much more. And now, let's get to the interview. I'm from the Highlands of Scotland originally, but I'm from Glasgow for the last 10 years, so my accent's kind of got a bit weird.
That's absolutely beautiful. I love and adore Scotland.
I mean, is that the kind of thing that you like? I mean, is that how you got into accents, do you think? Is it because you had the British dad and the Swedish mother? You kind of had that interest in language when you were growing up?
I don't know. I don't know if language is like one of my super interests. I think the use of language probably could be that, but not dialects and stuff like that. It's not. I'm not actually. That's one of the things I'm really bad at, actually.
So where do you think that then the interest for the brain and, you know, your presentation skills comes from? Because you've done 3 amazing TED Talks, but for those listening who are maybe not, not used to the name, could you give a quick explanation of who you are and like why, how you've got such a passion for like presentation and communicating with others?
Hey man, that's something I've asked myself so many times as well. I think I was an underdog in school, and I think that I leveled up my communication skills, and I learned to read people and kind of make the best out of every possible situation from a communication perspective. I don't know what the sweet spot is when it happened, but somewhere I just got massively interested in the power of communication, because I must have seen that it was just beyond power, beyond anything, in power. So I'm afraid I can't say when. I just know that I became obsessed by it somewhere around 14, 15.
And where do you see people going wrong with communication? Is there a kind of a standard... excuse my French, is there a standard way we fuck up communication? Is there a standard way you kind of see people and go, oh yeah, that's dry, that's dull, that's boring? Why don't we have like this amazing kind of push to use technology and really sell what we speak and that? Why do we stay with the boring presentations, boring work meetings, things like that? Are people stuck in that kind of belief that that's our personality and we can't change, do you think?
That could, yeah, I hear that all the time. Like one of the TED Talks I did where I analyzed 5,000 public speakers and I identified 110 skills any human can use to become brilliant at communication and public speaking. When I when I describe that to people, they, for real, they actually think that their communication abilities are set in stone, more or less. And then I just show you, try this skill, try this skill, try this skill, try this skill, and give it a month or two, and they've added 20 skills to their repertoire, and suddenly they become entertaining, and suddenly people listen. And it wasn't set in stone. I think you're right there. People believe we're stuck with what we've got.
Because it really surprised me. It's like, once I started listening to your TED Talks, I knew it was kind of rich and varied about what could affect how you present, how you communicate, how you connect with an audience. But it blew me away. I can't look at a website now. I can't look at a TED Talk or anything like that without thinking, oh, you could have done that better. Oh, is that a Dukan smile? Is that, I'm like, whoa.
And I'm sorry.
And they're so detailed, and you can see the passion and the intensity of and the work that you've put into these. But how does story play into telling things? They were said like that we communicate best by humans as we share ideas through story. Is that the best way of communicating, do you think?
By far. There's from an evolutionary perspective, there's just nothing that comes close to it. If you look back in history, we saw how they're not really our ancestors, but a prior sapien species, the Homo erectus, or a prior Homo species, they must have used narratives to plan their life, because they had fairly advanced civilizations, and they crossed oceans and they went into new countries. There's no way that they could have done that with some kind of narrative where they went even with body language, they might have pointed to a rock and then showed what would happen if they pushed that rock over and what would die or whatever. They must have been able to paint narratives with their hands, even if they didn't have language, which we don't know if they had. So we've been using narratives for longer than anything in our communication arsenal.
And how do you see use of story, the use of the pause, the way of body language and things like that? How does it benefit us? How does it affect us? Because it's interesting in that it would maybe affect your purchasing behavior. It would maybe affect how you show empathy to somebody or how you connect with an audience. How have you noticed that these sort of change of the skills? Could you give some examples of them and how they would affect the audience, the person you're interacting with?
Yeah, sure. I think the most interesting thing that, at least what I found, was during this study of all of these speakers, I found one of the skills, and I decided to name it synchronicity. And it means that a person is synchronized on all 5 layers of communication, which means that what they say with words is emphasized in the same way with their voice, and it's also enhanced with their gestures and body language and facial expressions. So the 5 layers are words, voice, gestures, body language, and facial expressions. And when you meet a person who is entirely synchronized in all 5, you buy everything they say. They feel like the most genuine human being you've ever met. And so many people can relate to this when they go into a room and they meet a person, and sometimes we just fall in love with that person in 30 seconds, because it's just pure transparency and genuinity. There's no discrepancy in these 5 layers. And then sometimes we meet people, and within 10 seconds, we feel that something's off. And almost in every single case, there's a discrepancy in the layers. So what they say is not matched up with how they say it, or what they say is not matched up with their facial expression for it, or their body language goes against what they're saying or how they're saying it, or any kind of combination, really. And that kind of blew my mind, and everyone can really do that better. When we say thank you, if you put on a smile and you actually mean it, and you say it, and at the same time you just show an open body language. Boom, that's full synchronicity, and it just means it's the entire difference in communication.
And have you noticed with are there certain people in like maybe the entertainment world that really surprise you, or they kind of are great examples that we could look at for people who have amazing communication styles? Because I always think of people like The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. He always seems to connect and be lovable to everybody he interacts with. Are there people you are really surprised with that you notice, or people that you think are great examples of don't do that? A bit like, you're probably thinking me just now, but
No. Well, look at it this way. As soon as those 5 layers are broken, there's discrepancy and it doesn't become trustworthy. So if you look at actors who are not able to fulfill all those 5 layers when delivering their role, we lose attention and immersion in the movie because it just seems off. It's like a plot hole in any movie. We're like, well, that was weird. Why he's got a watch now and he hasn't got one before? So I'd say that if you want to learn this, just look at the best actors in the world and what they do, like Denzel Washington, DiCaprio, Tom Hanks. Like, yeah, do what they do, and don't do what the actors that you really dislike. Don't do what they do, because they're usually off in the synchronicity.
And have you found that our use of technology has affected us? Because I know everybody goes on about stop using your screen. It's, keeps you up at night and, it helps your attention span be poor and stuff like that. But have you noticed that since you've looked at these 5,000 people that our communication skills have gone downhill, or have they been improved with the use of technology, Zoom calls, all that sort of stuff?
Well, that's a good question. And my response would probably be like the average presenter I see is equally bad today as they were 10, 20 years ago. I do see a difference, though, in the youth that I guess somewhere between 15 and 25 who've grown up with their mobile phones using Snapchat and later these years TikToks, but also communicating through Messenger and all those apps. What they've become good at is obviously rapid texting, but their face-to-face interactions are getting worse. I'd say that is a clear difference.
It's time for a quick break. There are millions of potential products to buy, so how do you know which ones are worth your hard-earned money? Simple. You go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and explore those that will transform and improve your life. You'll find deals, listener exclusives, and special offers with some great companies. Recommendations are 100% honest and only on items Ian has tried or believes in. The companies showcased will make you a better man in all areas of your life. Simply go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and level up.
And how does things change now then if we are dealing with, like, say you're in a crowd or you're in a presentation compared to sitting in a boardroom with 4 or 5 people? Does gender play? Does age play a difference? Have you found that your sort of 110 skills are, because they're fantastic and it's amazing the depth that you looked at it and, the amazing kind of, I couldn't believe the range of things that I hadn't even contemplated would affect it. But have you found these 110 skills really are the sort of the gold standard, or does it affect it if it's face to face on Zoom in front of an audience, those sort of things?
Yeah. Some skills are better to use in certain situations, definitely. I'd say that there is a difference. If you're up on a stage and you're speaking to 10,000 people, the skills you'll be using then compared to going on a date will be different. And especially when it's in a date situation, it's a dialogue, and that's communication. But on stage, it's a monologue, more or less, which changes the skills pretty much. Yeah. So I've created filters. I've got a website called headgain.com where I've got all my digital content. So I created filters depending on the kind of situation you're in. Then you can filter out the skills that are important for that particular situation. So you can learn those.
Because it was phenomenal. Like when I went on to your website, I was like, "There's an example of that. There's an example of that." It's after watching your TED talk, you really notice just how amazing. Just like on the one about death by PowerPoint, you think, well, you see it everywhere. But the one about the 110 skills, it's just mind blowing how alive you can connect with people, and feel after just understanding the nuances of how we talk, how we present, and things like that. Something I was always interested in was emotion, and you give a lot of great emotion in your talks. How should we play with that?
Genuine, I think. These 5 layers of synchronicity shouldn't be fake, nor should emotion be. But what may be important is to put yourself into the right emotion. So, for instance, if you're going to do a speech and it's important that you are in an empathetic mindset or a mood, well, then before going up, you probably shouldn't watch a comedy show for an hour. You'll be way better if you think about memories or you watch clips that puts you in the mood that the talk desires or needs. That'll make it truly authentic instead of just trying to make up the emotion on stage out of nowhere. So I'd say those are important. And just as a reflection to what you said before on the 110 skills, what's incredible, like just have a look at 3 super simple skills, or 2 even. When you're having a dialogue with a person, if you just nod your head to confirm that you're listening and tilt your head slightly to show empathy for what they're saying, those 2 small skills, if you start using them and you haven't used them before, you'll get people to talk to you in a new way and a different way, and they'll trust you in a different way. And then some may say, but isn't that like manipulation? Like I'm using skills to get the best out of the situation. Well, the thing is that easily 40% of the population use those skills because they learned them from their parents. You just didn't. And it's not manipulation. It's just that somewhere you need to start. So if you start, of course, this will be a bit odd consciously to begin with, nod and tilt your head, but your brain adapts so quickly. So give it a month or 2 and you'll be starting to do it automatically, and it'll be a life changer. And that's just 2 skills of the lot.
Because when you gave one of your TED Talks, you were talking about how sometimes slanting the head shows like empathy towards the person you're speaking to. And I found since I've started the podcast and doing video interviews, I've started doing that a lot more without really realizing it. And I
got into your head.
And it was really weird. It was kind of like, because I remember doing that with somebody where I was like, really helping them. They were in a bad situation. And it was like, oh, I do that as well. I could believe that. And, and I'm noticing Ducan smiles now in like in photos with people on their websites and things like that. Yeah. Why is it, if it's this important and this like the change in your relationships, your work, etc., why do we, when we talk about public speaking, for example, people talk about how to overcome the fear of speaking, but not how to give the speech? Why don't companies like hire you, to completely radically redesign and rechange their style of communication? Is it just idiocy? Do you think that companies will not let you? We're so stuck in our style of communication. Why won't companies sort of really adapt and change? Why do we only focus on things like how to overcome the nerves of speaking publicly rather than how to do it?
No, that's true. And there are some of us who does that. We do that kind of training, which is probably the reason why we're fully booked, because it's very popular. And I believe that we're obviously not alone. There's plenty of consultants and training companies having that angle around the world, and I think they're doing way better than just focusing on removing the fear. It's and that's the thing. I think you got something there which goes like this: that if I put you in a car and you haven't got a driver's license and you don't know how to drive a car, and it's like, say, a Ferrari, £200,000 Ferrari, I put you in the middle of London, I'll ask you, make yourself out of London. You'd be a nervous wreck and you'd probably crash because you don't know how to do it. And it's the same thing on stage. If you don't know how to present, you'll be a nervous wreck and you'll mess it up. But if I teach you how to drive a car, if I take you on racetracks with that Ferrari, and I give you the opportunity to drive around London in it, you're going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to own this. I'm going to play the music loud and I'm going to show them I'm a player. This is going to be so awesome. And the same thing happens on stage. If you know the skills, your mindset is like, ooh, I'm going to rock this thing. This is going to be brilliant. So fear is, according to me, it is removed by the increased ability to use the skills and become aware that it's down to the skills at the end of the day, and to a certain extent preparation. But you know what? If you have the skills, you can deliver a presentation without preparation way better than a person who hasn't got the skills and who spent weeks preparing.
I certainly noticed like that you're a master of that. Like there's a bit where you talk about, I'm going to demonstrate 5 skills, and you have the audience eating out your hands. Yeah. You have them laughing, joking, empathizing with you through it. For those listening, how can we are there like top tips you could give us right now, maybe 3 to 5 that would radically improve somebody's skills at giving speeches or presentations?
Well, looking from a skill perspective, I'd say that number 44 out of the 110 is the most important one. It's called functional gestures. And it means that you use your hands to emphasize what you're saying. A lot of people do this, but they're all over the place with their hands. Like, really, say, for instance, you're delivering a PowerPoint with 10 slides. Plan a gesture for at least every other slide. That means 5 gestures for 10 slides. What will happen is that it's almost like starting up an old car engine, where your brain will go like, oh my God, we're waving our hands. We seem to be relaxed. This is fun. I'll add another one. And suddenly your brain starts adding and creating new gestures, which you hadn't even planned doing. And the gestures makes you more relaxed, because we usually don't gesture if we are stressed. You can kind of trick your brain by using gestures even when you're stressed, and it'll stress you, or take away your stress, or reduce your stress. The other one is that it'll be more clear to your audience. If you show 3 fingers and you say 3 at the same time, that will increase clarity. There's loads of benefits, but number 44, functional gestures. Just plan more of those into your talks until they become second nature to you. Then I would say increase volume. A lot of speakers, when they speak, they tend to reduce their volume by 20%. Now, what I noticed is that volume is directly correlated to confidence. And that's the reason why we lower our volume when we start speaking. So what you do instead is that you actually increase your volume 20% from base level. So you increase it slightly more than what you use when you talk naturally. This has a mind-blowing effect on this 110-step chart, where it actually affects almost up to 20 other skills. Like 20 other skills are positively impacted by increasing volume. I'll give you those 2. And then so many, my friend, there are so many. Last one on super hack is people sometimes have a problem showing emotions on stage, what I've noticed after coaching so many people throughout my career is that your facial expressions has a direct connection to your emotions. So if you force yourself to look sad, you will more likely feel sad. If you force your facial expression to be enthusiastic, you'll more likely feel enthusiastic. Now, the thing that mistake people do is that they don't use their facial expressions, and then by so they don't really bring out their emotions in an efficient way. So it's kind of it's a shortcut to initiating emotion when you need it. Use the other tip I said as well, create the right state before going up on stage. So there are three good tips that makes a big difference.
Because when you did the TED talk, I remember pausing it just to look at the screenshot of the 110 that you were talking about, and I was thinking, that's amazing. Hadn't thought that, and just thought, just training with you or like watching your videos would blow me away and completely change my life. But it's not just communication that you're amazing at. You have so many hints and tips in your social media on about depression, on about self-leadership and things like that. I was really interested in the concept of self-leadership. You say on your website, for example, you want people to self-lead, to lead ourselves and others. How can we work on that? And is that the basis of using communication to connect, or is it like, how do we build confidence in ourselves to lead, to be self-leading and take self-leadership?
Yeah. Well, I started doing this when I was 20. About 18 probably, actually. And when I was 36, between 18 and 36, that's 18 years, I've been training people in what I defined as external communication: body language, voice, facial expressions, PowerPoint, storytelling. When I was around 36, I realized I'd been depressed most part of my adult life. And I'd hit it really well because I know how to use skills to, I guess, change how people perceive me if I need so. And I really did that because I didn't want people to see my depression. Anyhow, what I realized then and there was that there was something way more important, not way more important, but at least equally important to external communication, and that's internal communication. What you say to yourself. What do you say to yourself when you go up on stage? What do you say to yourself when you leave stage? What do you say to yourself when you're on a date? What do you say to yourself going into or going out to or during an interview? And at the end of the day, a lot of self-leadership comes down to storytelling. We human beings tell thousands of stories a day to ourselves about our future and our past. A lot of these stories, they worry us. So stories about what will happen when I get to this age. Will I ever get married? Will I ever have kids? And we play these stories in our head. And it holds us back more than anything in life. And that's why self-leadership is crucial to becoming a good public speaker, communicator. If you harness and excel in your internal communication, combine that with the external communication of the 110 steps and storytelling and so on, you can go quite far, to say the least.
Because that's what blew me away on your social media was, I mean, I suffer from depression myself, and I know that feeling of when you critique yourself and you hate yourself, or you're in your zone, you're in your head and you can't even communicate with a person because you're terrified of some slight you think you're hearing in their voice when they speak to you, and the concept's amazing, and I really encourage anybody listening to go and watch those videos on self-leadership to get in touch with you, because your social media has helped me in ways I can never say thanks enough. It's been amazing to see somebody, because when you watch your talks, you never think you would struggle with that, and to see how amazing. I mean, you're and then communicating in English in better ways than the majority of like traditional speakers. So how would you want people to work with you to take from this to, what would you want them as a go-home message to remember about communication, about presentations and connecting with people and self-leadership?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry to hear that you have or are depressed. It's not a nice state to be in, my friend, and I truly believe that is hackable. You can bypass that if you put a lot of work into it. So just keep at it and listen to my social media, and on Headgain as well. There's a WOW course. The WOW course, I call it WOW because that's what life is supposed to be, like WOW, and that is all the tools I used to hack my depression when I did it back in the days. So if you, my friend, have a look at that, and anyone listening as well, dealing with depression and anxiety, it's not worth it. Just hack that as soon as possible. It's doable. But in regards to your question, I'd like to say that communication is the most important skill in your entire life. You can go to any kind of training, any high school, university, and learn really interesting subjects, which have a massive impact on you. But in life, in general, becoming fluent in internal and external communication, it'll lead you to places that you would never be able to go otherwise. So value that, my friend. And anyone can become a master in this skill. So yeah, that's the takeaway.
And when you think we're social animals and we connect with it, you're selling the story, you're not selling the product, you're the presentation. As you said, the PowerPoint's the visual aid. We're selling it in every interaction. And it's amazing how most people don't change that. So how can people keep in touch with you, find like Headgain? How can they, find your website, your TED Talks, things like that? Because we haven't even sort of scratched the surface on the amazing stuff that you have. So how can people connect with you, social media, and find out more about you?
You're a very kind man. Thank you. I'd say that, I'm using Instagram a lot. I'm using TikTok a lot. I'm using LinkedIn a lot. Trying to get back to the YouTube game, but there's some really good content there as well, which has already been produced. So all of that is just go and consume it. If you want to get into the nitty-gritty and actually move from A to B in a fast, progressive way, headgain.com is the website, and we're doing from April. We're actually doing live training there, like live digital training with me. Prior to that, it was just digital, just video. But now we'll be doing live video digital training. So that's going to be awesome. So I hope I'll see you there.
Well, that's it for another week. And thank you for listening. It's now time to take what you've learned and use it to develop and enhance your life with the key points mentioned. Listen, try it, embrace it, use it, and crush it. Now's your time to hit that next level in your life. If you liked this episode, then please leave a comment on the show notes or a review of the show on your podcast platform. Everything helps evolve the show. Until next week, keep seeking the next level in your life.